You think you can escape, don't you? You think there's another way out of this, but you're wrong, Uju. The old man is waiting. He's not getting any younger.
You can't make me do this. I won't marry him. I would rather die.
Die? That's exactly what will happen to you if you don't marry him. The family needs this. He needs this. You have no choice.
I'd rather be free than live a life of misery, chained to someone who can barely remember his own name. Please, mother, you don't have to do this.
Don't call me that. I am not your mother. I'm the woman who will make sure you obey. Don't forget it.
Hello, my wonderful people. This is part 3 of Uju and her wicked stepmother. If you have not watched part 1 and 2, go and watch it. If you are enjoying our story, please do well to like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell for more videos. The old man straightened his back. His cloak fell to the ground. In place of rags, a royal robe shimmered. His beard vanished. His skin, once wrinkled, smoothed. Before her stood not a beggar, but a king. The guards knelt. "Your Majesty," they chanted. Uju's knees buckled. The king caught her. "You did not choose riches, beauty, or ease. You chose character. You chose heart. You have passed the test." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Who are you?" "I am Obiezu, king of Erema, a kingdom hidden to those who judge by appearance. I have a son, the crown prince, and I needed to find a wife for him, not one with titles or painted charm, but one forged in fire." Uju's heart raced. From the palace, a tall young man emerged. His skin glowed like bronze, and his eyes held the calm of rivers. He smiled at her. "I am Dika, son of Obiezu, and I have waited for you." The world spun. Uju fell to her knees. Obiezu lifted her up. "Today we celebrate not just your arrival, but your resilience. You are to be my daughter, if you accept." There in the Valley of Light, among drums and cheers, Uju embraced her fate, not as a slave girl or castaway, but as a queen to be. The shadows of her past began to dissolve in the golden light of a destiny long foretold. The kingdom of Erema had not witnessed such celebration in 100 moons. Word spread faster than fire in dry grass. The king's son was to marry a girl not of royal blood, but of royal soul. Preparations began at once. Drummers were summoned from across the rivers. Tailors embroidered silken wrappers with golden thread. Even the birds seemed to sing louder, the wind to hum sweeter. Uju, now bathed in warmth she had never known, moved through the palace halls like a dream. Servants bowed to her, yet she bowed in return, kindness never having left her bones. Still, the nights were restless. As the wedding approached, Uju wrestled with fear. Would her past find her here? Would Iweka come screaming through the gates, dragging the ghosts of pain? But the king, wise and discerning, noticed her silence. One evening he called her into the great garden, where the baobab trees whispered secrets to the stars. He asked, "What troubles you, my daughter?" Uju hesitated. "I do not belong here. I'm just a girl beaten and abandoned." Obiezu took her hand and said, "You are not here because of where you came from, but because of who you became." On the morning of the wedding, the entire kingdom dressed in white and red, colors of purity and royalty. The palace gates were opened and guests flooded in from nearby villages and distant kingdoms. Dika, regal and proud, waited at the sacred grove where royal unions were sealed. Uju, clad in coral beads and a white wrapper threaded with gold, was led out by 12 maidens singing her praises. Her steps were slow, but her heart was steady. And as she walked through the avenue of trees, petals fell from the branches and the wind carried her mother's voice. Your fire was never meant to be hidden. When Uju reached Dika, he smiled and whispered, "You are more than I prayed for." The priestess blessed them with kola and honey, and as they exchanged vows, the sky above opened, not with rain, but with sunlight so brilliant that guests shielded their eyes. Then, just as the ceremony ended, a gasp rippled through the crowd. At the edge of the grove stood Iweka, in tattered cloth, face streaked with dust and tears. Her voice was hoarse. She cried, "Uju, forgive me." Silence fell. Iweka stumbled forward, collapsing at Uju's feet. "They turned me out. The lies caught up. Your father is sick with regret. Oma is gone, taken by a man with no name. I cursed you, and now it is I who am cursed." Uju trembled, her hands clenched. Years of pain surged forward like a wave. But then her mother's lullaby returned. She knelt and looked at Iweka. Truly looked. I am not who you left behind. I am who I chose to become. Obiezu stepped forward. This is your choice, my daughter. Vengeance or virtue? Would you help Iweka to her feet? I release you, she said. Not for you, for me, because I will not carry your chains into my palace. Tears fell freely then from guests and royals alike. The wedding resumed with dance, wine, and stories. Dika held Uju close as drums echoed into the night. That evening, in the glow of fireflies and candlelight, Uju sat on the palace balcony, no longer haunted, but whole. With the wedding behind them, the people of Erema hailed Uju not just as the prince's bride, but the kingdom's jewel. Yet, even within joy, the ancestors say, the yam must still be peeled with caution. The palace was grand, yes, but royalty came with its own battles. Uju, once a barefoot girl beaten for speaking her mind, now sat among chiefs and diplomats. She had to learn quickly how to address foreign guests, how to read scrolls of law, how to settle disputes between traders, how to carry herself with both softness and steel. Dika stood beside her always, encouraging her, but he never shielded her from the weight of the crown. He often said, you do not need protection, you only need space to rise. And rise she did. Yet, beyond the marble walls of the palace, thunder gathered over Umuagu. Iweka, though forgiven by Uju, returned home a shadow of herself. The villagers, having learned the truth, turned their backs on her. She roamed the streets, muttering to herself, swatting at ghosts only she could see. Ezeudo, once proud and respected, now sat alone beneath the pawpaw tree, staring blankly into the distance. His strength had withered like burnt leaves. He called Uju's name daily, as if speaking it might reverse time. As for Oma, she had vanished with a stranger, a man draped in wealth and arrogance. He had arrived in a golden chariot and promised her silk, servants, and status. Blinded by greed and ambition, Oma followed him without question. But weeks turned to months and no word came. Rumors spread that the man was a trafficker of women, that Oma had become one of many trapped behind high walls in a distant land. Iweka screamed when she heard, clawing at her chest until blood stained her wrapper. Back in Erema, Uju, despite her new role, could not ignore the cries of her old home. She summoned Obiezu and Dika. I must return, she said, not to live, to mend what remains. The king nodded slowly. To wear a crown is to serve, not escape. Go with my blessing. And so, in royal robes but without fanfare, Uju returned to Umuagu. Children ran ahead shouting, she has come. Some elders wept, others fell on their knees. The compound where she once knew pain was now overgrown with weeds. Iweka lay inside, thin and gray-haired, her eyes vacant. When she saw Uju, she tried to sit but collapsed. Why do you return? She rasped. Is it to mock me? Uju knelt by her side and took her hand. No, it is to end the story properly. With palace resources, she renovated the compound, fed the hungry, and built a small school near the stream where she once fetched water. She named it Neoma Academy, in memory of her mother. Ezeudo was brought to the palace to live out his days in peace, surrounded by music and gentle care. He died 6 months later, his final words being, tell her I see her now. Iweka remained in the village. Uju offered to bring her to Erema, but she refused. She said, this land must finish what it started. Uju respected her choice. On the day she returned to Erema for good, the villagers lined the road, singing songs of healing and hope. And as the chariot pulled away, Uju looked back one last time, not with bitterness, but with blessing. For even thrones have thorns, but she had learned how to sit among them without bleeding. Back in Erema, the palace buzzed with new life. Uju's return from Umuagu wasn't just a visit, it marked the rebirth of ties that many had forgotten. She began initiatives to help young girls from poor villages, women accused of witchcraft, and widows cast aside by their families. She sat in council not just to listen, but to shape the very soul of the kingdom. She often said, if pain taught me anything, it is that no one should be left in its grip without hope. But even as her name soared through villages like a prayer answered, the echo of her past still stirred shadows. One rainy evening, a letter arrived from a distant province near the coast. It bore no royal seal, no embellishment, just a trembling hand. It was from Oma. She was alive, barely. Her letter was smudged, rushed, and full of desperation.
The man she had run away with was a devil in rich clothing. He had imprisoned her in a brothel for foreign travelers. Her days blurred between shame and pain, and now she had escaped but was haunted. "Sister," she wrote, "I mocked you. I envied you. I took the path of shiny lies. Please help me if anything still lives in your heart for me." Dika read the letter in silence. It could be a trap, he warned. She may not have changed, but Uju's eyes told a different story. "She is my sister, no matter the thorns she planted. I know her voice. I must try." With royal guards and disguised carriages, Uju embarked on the journey. It took days. They passed through deserts and towns known for harboring crime. Finally, in a village called Agbara Onu, they found a filthy shack with a girl barely breathing inside. Her beauty had faded, her voice cracked, but her tears were real. When she saw Uju, she tried to hide her face. "I am not worth saving," she sobbed. Uju knelt by her side. "You are lost, not gone." She carried Oma out herself, wrapped her in royal cloth, and brought her home. For weeks, Oma said little, as though words might crack the fragile mercy she'd been given. But in time, she began to heal, not just in flesh, in spirit. She took on tasks within the palace kitchens, helped with the orphan girls, and stayed away from titles or luxury. One morning, as the sun climbed slowly behind the hills, Oma came to Uju's chambers. She knelt without being told. "I don't want the world to forget what I did, but I hope it will remember what you did for me." Uju embraced her. "We will write a new story together." News of Uju's compassion spread beyond Erema. Scribes and travelers documented her story. They called her the Phoenix Queen, the girl who rose
From ashes, and instead of raining fire, rained grace. Iweka, still in Umuagu, heard whispers of her two daughters now united in peace. It burned her more than any curse. One morning, overcome by guilt and alone in her hut, she screamed into the empty air, "I have eaten my own harvest." Her body was found days later by a well, her eyes open, as if waiting for forgiveness to come walking. Uju wept when she heard, not from love, from the ache of finality. Even poison, she told Dika, was once a seed. They held a simple burial in her honor, not to glorify her deeds, but to lay them to rest. In the months that followed, Irema saw its greatest peace in a generation. Girls walked with heads high, boys sang of queens who didn't just marry kings, but became legends. And through it all, Uju never stopped planting. Gardens, schools, wisdom, healing. For even when fire consumes the wicked, it still leaves light for those who survive. Years passed, and the winds of time carried Uju's name farther than even the river's current could reach. In distant lands where no one knew the name Umuagu or Irema, travelers spoke in hushed tones about the queen who had risen from dust to destiny. Mothers told their daughters the tale of the girl with fire in her eyes and mercy in her bones. Elders added her story to the moonlight gatherings beside tales of Anansi and the tortoise. But Uju herself never saw her story as a legend. To her, it was life, it was choice, it was survival woven into purpose. On the 15th anniversary of her wedding, Irema held a grand festival, not of pomp or riches, but of memory. Uju sat under the great tree, now old and silver-haired, with her twin sons playing near her feet. Dika, still her steadfast partner, watched her as if seeing her for the first time again. Oma stood nearby, now a teacher in the royal school, her scars faded but not forgotten. She had chosen a quiet life, turning down offers of marriage to focus on rebuilding the girl she had once lost. As dancers performed and drummers beat rhythms of home, Uju was handed a scroll. It was from a distant chief who once turned away poor women at his palace gates. He wrote, "I once ruled with iron, now I rule with listening. Your story changed me." Uju smiled. Change, that was the true crown. Later that evening, Uju walked alone into the garden behind the palace, carrying a calabash filled with ash from the incense burned in her mother's memory. At the foot of an udala tree, she whispered, "Ashes return to the earth, but the spirit dances." She poured the ash into the soil and placed her palm over it. Ashe, she said softly. Let it be so. In her final years, Uju wrote scrolls filled with wisdom, not about war or conquest, but about gentleness and how sometimes the most powerful stories are those forged in silence and suffering. When she passed on, old and revered, her burial shook the land. The trees wept dew, the birds flew in perfect patterns, a rainbow arced over the palace. She was buried not in a tomb of gold, but under the same Udala tree where she had once released her mother's ashes. Her sons placed stones marked with symbols of love, courage, and forgiveness. And on her grave was carved a simple phrase in the old tongue. She was not born royal, she became it. Thus ended the story of Uju, the girl once cast aside by cruelty, who rose to hold nations together with a heart that refused to harden. In every village, every market, every whispering wind, her tale lived on, not just as warning, but as hope, that even in the darkest soil, greatness can grow, that ashes can bloom, and that sometimes the one meant to destroy you becomes the very fire that shapes your crown.
Thank you very much, my wonderful family. And this is the end of the story of Uju and her wicked stepmother. Thank you once again for watching to this point of the end. If there's anything this story teaches you, makes you remember, or anything you feel at all, let us know on the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and also ring the notification bell for more wonderful stories like this. Bye!